when I start feeling insecure, that's when I accept just okay. Hey, welcome back to the Church Staff Book Club. We are in number 8, episode 8 of the podcast. We're also in chapter 8 of the book that we're covering called The Comeback Effect. My name is Jonathan Malm, and I'm here with
Jason Young.
We are talking about this book that we wrote. We're not always going to be talking about a book that we wrote, but this one was a great way to start. So it's a book about hospitality. How do you make people feel like they want to come back? How do you make guests and even people who've been going 50, 100 times feel like they're at home, feel like, wow, this is, I feel welcomed. I feel at home. I feel invited here. So that's what we're talking about. Today's chapter is Reject Just Okay. Jason, this one I think is like in the church space, probably one of the harder ones to swallow because it's like excellence. It's almost like, I don't know, I feel like it can be a little bit, a lot of these chapters have felt maybe it's a little consumeristic where it's like, it has to be excellent. It has to be excellent. And it kind of like, especially when you're dealing with volunteers, it can be stressful.
Yeah. Let me see if I can set context with a few, I don't know, I wouldn't say provocative statements, maybe bold statements. Average experiences, wherever you go, rarely inspire return.
Yeah. So average meaning just kind of what's expected, what you kind of
basic.
Normal.
Yep, just the norm. And so if we were to take that statement and leap into the church world, I might say it differently like this. I don't think most churches don't have bad hospitality. They have forgettable hospitality.
That's good.
So, and sometimes we think of things as like good or bad. Yeah. Our experiences are good or bad. And so I don't think a church, volunteer staff get up in the morning, get up every day and go, we're going to have bad hospitality. We don't want people to feel I don't think that's the case. I actually just think they have forgettable hospitality. So a step further.
Just okay, meaning that was good enough.
Yeah, it was good enough. And remember this, just okay, it doesn't like push people or repel people, but here's what it does. It quietly convinces them not to come back. So it's not this loud thing, but it is this quiet thing that convinces them like it's basic, It wasn't necessarily excellent. So again, just thinking of a few statements to anchor us as we start the conversation, I thought might be a little bit helpful, just the way I think about it, if that makes sense.
And a critical detail is that we're not talking about, necessarily that your coffee needs to be perfectly brewed, fresh beans. We're not talking about the music needing to be incredibly polished, the tech. We're not talking about the program. We're talking about the welcoming environment. Yeah, and I think that's a key detail that we probably need to unpack, because I feel like a lot of churches, and we talked about this maybe 2 weeks ago, that we're so focused on the runtime of service from the start, from the opening chord to the final amen. And we're like, that needs to be excellent. Zero downtime, seamless transitions. And like, I'm on board with that. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but that I think is where we exhaust people more than when it's like, hey, how can we just go above and beyond making people feel like they're at home here? So that's the just okay is like, oh, hey, how's it going? Come on in. And it's like, I guess they're not upset that I'm here, but they're not happy that I'm here, right? Like it's like there's this, and that's where I think that just okay world kind of is.
Yeah, let me ask you a question that sometimes I even struggle with. Those of you watching, listening right now, you may or may not know this about me. Jonathan knows this. In fact, we were just talking about it before we jumped on. Perfectionism is it's something I have battled most of my life, which leads me to this question for us to chat through. Let me toss it to you. What is the difference? So we're talking about reject just okay. So we're pushing and really advocating for excellence, right? What could be the difference between excellence and perfection in hospitality?
Yeah, that's a great difference between the two of us. One of the things that I'm always doing when we're writing a book is I say, okay, let's move on. Because Jason, you're like, I don't like this word. I don't like, and I'm like, we gotta like, for me, I'm ship. Like, let's ship, ship, ship.
Yep, you
You're
are.
very perfection oriented, which is really good. I think it's a good balance between the two of us. But I think the big difference for me is 80% of the work gets you almost there. Like the last 20% of work is not 20% of the value. It's like 1% of the value.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so often where we waste, a fifth of our time trying to make things perfect. And we
Mm-hmm.
could have moved on a little bit, or we're stressing, we're freaking out, and we don't even necessarily know what the perfect line is. I mean, we talk about this in Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright, the idea that perfectionism is impossible, right? Perfection is impossible. But we are like trying to get that extra 1% when we don't need to. It's 20% of our time. So that's I think that's for me where I'm like, man, this is excellent. It's not perfect, but it's excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're listening right now and you're, or watching and you're like, it's hard. You feel a tension. Welcome to being normal. It is hard, especially when you attach this faith aspect to it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, God would want it to be excellent. And yes. And sometimes it's like, what is that? So a question sometimes I think about is this: why, and this is an assumption, so if you're listening right now and you're on a church staff, you're like, Jason, that's an assumption. Fair enough. I'll confess. But here's the question: why do some churches settle for good enough more than they realize? Like, why does that happen?
Yeah, I think some of it is a tradition. In churches, we so easily settle into a pattern of this is what we do. Whether you're a liturgical church, whether you're a modern megachurch, we all settle into this routine of this is what we do. And so in the book, we talk about sort of 5 areas where we're tempted to reject just okay, or where we're tempted to settle. And I think these are helpful filters to see like, okay, where could be an area that we might be settling? And they are where we think people won't see. So that would be, the bathrooms or, different places where like, nobody will notice this. Nobody will notice this lack of excellence. When things just have to get done, sometimes that's one of those like, pastor really wants this done. We don't see the value in it. No one else sees the value in it, but we just got to do it. When we don't feel the burden, this is so often where volunteers are the issue, is that they don't feel the burden. I think about, I was talking to my brother and he's like, I hate when people ask me to volunteer on the welcome team, because most of the time I feel like I'm just standing around and I don't know what I need to do. I'm not necessary here.
Yeah.
He doesn't see the burden for hospitality. So he's like, he's probably going to just accept okay right there. Also when there's lower stakes. So, whenever we're like, again, we think of the service as the key, like that's where everything matters. But then the before and after service doesn't matter as much, or the 10 minutes before, or the 20 minutes after. And then also just when we're feeling lazy. And that's a reality of like, if you volunteer, that's one of the reasons maybe we say, we don't want people to volunteer every Sunday, because you just feel exhausted. You feel worn out. You're like, I don't have it in me to give this Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you shared those. And I remember when we were writing, like, I've experienced some of those moments myself, leading volunteers and crafting these experiences and being on church staff for many years. And so if one resonated with you, like we may experience those at different points. I think about like our normal living. So I want to invite you to think about how you live. So where you eat and shop and maybe stay in a hotel. So let me just see if some of these examples resonate with you. Think about a restaurant, right? So you go to a restaurant, you have a meal, maybe with your family, a friend, whatever, you leave, and it was fine. Like you're not mad at the experience. It's just fine, right? It was like minimum. You're not like eager, excited to go back. And what's interesting is this, and this ties into our church experiences. People rarely return to an experience they don't remember. And I think if anybody ought to create something that people can remember, they listened to me. They noticed me. They saw me. They cared for me. They didn't brush me off. They weren't too busy, et cetera, right? So again, thinking about churches like that, but also like restaurant, how we daily live. Here's another one.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone to a hotel and, I mean, everything technically works, right? Shampoo, it's fine, basic. Towels, thin, but they dry me off. Room, I mean, it has a bed and it's clean. It's acceptable, right? The idea that just okay communicates this, we did the minimum.
Yeah.
And so the church version, so that would be a restaurant and a hotel. The church version could be something like, I mean, greeters are there, but they're distracted.
Yeah.
Coffee exists, but it tastes like regret. Why did I get this cup of coffee? This junk is nasty, right? Again, coffee's not everything, but if you're going to serve it like, yeah. Anyways, I'll leave that alone.
That's a really good phrase, a really good point. If you're going to serve it, meaning if you're going to put volunteers in a place of being a potential obstacle or potential help, it needs to be excellent. I think that's I really want to jump on that.
Yeah. Again, I actually, and this could be just me, I don't attend a church and expect them to provide coffee. Now, confession, I've never had coffee in my life. So I might be an anomaly in both regards.
Are you a Mormon? Am I just finding this out about you?
Bro, I'm telling you, people silently and out loud judge me. They're like, they give me these looks like, I'm like never. I love the smell of it.
That's the Christian version of finding out you don't drink, where you're like, oh, whoa, what a weird person.
Yeah. That dude is weird. Yeah. But again, I think your point is well made. Like, so I don't expect it, but if you're going to do it, again, some other examples in church world, signs are there, but your signs are confusing.
Yeah.
Volunteers are present. We talked about greeters a second ago, but volunteers are present, but without warmth.
Yeah.
So nothing's broken and nothing is memorable.
It kind of reminds me. It kind of reminds me of whenever my son, my 5-year-old son, he's like, "Hey, Dad, let's play a game." And I say, "Okay, what do you want to play?" He's like, "No, what do you want to play?" And so I'll say, "Okay, I want to play Candyland." He's like, "No, I want to play Sorry." I'm like, "Why did you ask? Like, why did you ask me to pick if you didn't want me to pick?" So it kind of reminds me of that. Like, why did you put a volunteer there? Why did you put coffee out if you're just like not putting if you're not feeling it?
Yeah. And you and I have talked about this. In fact, you said it at the very beginning, around when you were introing the podcast at the beginning, that hospitality really, we talk about this emotion, this feeling, right? And people remember how you made them feel. We talk about this all the time in day-to-day living. We feel this all the time in day-to-day living. And remember this, if you're on a church staff, you're listening right now, remember this. Guests don't necessarily come back because things were fine. Mm-hmm. They come back because something felt intentional.
Yeah.
And so when we think about just okay, we're not talking about perfectionism. We're talking about intentional effort where people feel that intentionality from you, especially, here's maybe a little bit of a nuance, especially when you didn't have to, but they feel like you chose to do it anyway. Again, that's the power of being intentional. And you said something I want to pick up on again. We're not talking about perfectionism. We're talking about being excellent, and excellent doesn't equate or equal like fancy, right?
Yeah.
So, but excellence can mean clarity. It can mean consistency. It can mean intentionality. So I hear this all the time from churches. Well, we don't have the budget that so-and-so church has down the street. And I will tell them this. Look, excellent isn't about a budget. Excellence is about care.
Yeah.
And so, I've been to churches. In fact, there's one that's in my head right now that they have a lot of money. But if you were to ask me, Jason, pick your top 5 churches where you don't feel cared for, that would be one of them. And they have a ton of money. So excellence isn't about budget. Excellence is about care. Now, it is nice to have a little moolah. However, it's not contingent upon how much moolah you have.
It kind of reminds me, honestly, of like the Super Bowl commercials that rely on a celebrity to endorse something, and they didn't
Yeah.
necessarily put a lot of creativity into the commercial itself, and so it kind of falls flat. But you're like, the celebrity is the thing, so it's almost like the money. Like, we spent a lot of money to have our LED wall, to have our amazing coffee bar, and our incredible signage and lobby and all that stuff, and you think, okay, we did it. We did the thing
Yeah.
because we threw money at the problem, instead of realizing that, again, this is so important with church. What matters the most in church is not the program, is not the content. The people is what
Yeah.
matters. I
Yeah.
can go to a service that is in a rundown shack, and if people are warm and invited, I mean, we go to my wife's family is from Argentina. We'll go to Argentina, and the welcome there is so over the top. Like, I was joking the other day, like, in Buenos Aires, you do one kiss, and you have to say hi to everyone. So if it's a church of 100 people, you kiss 100 people when you walk into that church. Like, I was joking, like, my cheeks hurt at the end of service because I was kissing everyone, right? And then where her dad's family is from, you do 2 kisses. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to church in that town, because I'm like, I can't handle 100 with 1 kiss. But the idea is, like, it's not, the churches that I've been to there, they're not necessarily, I mean, I've been to some nice churches, but they're not necessarily like, they're not American style where it's like incredible, lobby and expensive equipment, but the people, the love, the feeling is there. That's where the excellence is. And I think that's kind of a good, a good way to illustrate it is, like, when you walk into a church in Argentina, you kiss every single person, where, as opposed to the United States, where you walk in, and if someone makes eye contact with you, you kind of wave at them. But, like, you're not intentional about, I have to seek every single person out when I enter and when I leave. It's a very intentional way of being hospitable. That's just culturally part of Argentina's culture, right? So I think of that whenever it's like, what are we doing? Are we being intentional to go across the board? Are we being intentional to welcome every single person? And that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing to do in an American culture where we're like, I mean, I was thinking about that. We walked into a CVS, and they say hello when you walk into the CVS, but then we were exiting. My wife's aunt and uncle were here from Argentina, and they said bye bye to the person, and I'm like, you just don't. And they were like, oh, bye. Like, you don't do that. But again, in Argentina, you say hello. If you see someone, you say hello to them. You acknowledge them, and that's a hard thing. It's a hard thing culturally to change about American culture.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. You giving that example reminded me. So my wife and I, we like to walk around our neighborhoods about 2 miles around, and when she and I are very different. This isn't a criticism on her, but maybe it's my wiring, but maybe born and raised in the South. She is from Midwest, so it's close. But when we pass people in the neighborhood, like, I will wave and speak to them, and if they don't return, I'm like,
how rude.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. And I don't know why I do this. If we pass them again, I don't know why this is, but I will wave to them and speak to them again. And Stacy,
you're an instigator, is what you are.
Stacy's like, we literally just saw them. And I'm like, I know. And so there is this, like, this thing, and it really is like, how much is too much? How much is not enough? And maybe we're given, exaggerative examples. But when we think about the church, what's hard is when guests show up at our church, they don't grade on a curve. By that, I mean this, they don't separate the sacred and practical. Right? Mm-hmm. Practical being their rhythm of living, sacred being inside the church. They don't separate those as experiences and grade the church on a curve because they're sacred. They look at everything together. So their favorite coffee shop, the kids' school, the gym they work out at, their workplace, their last church.
I would actually challenge what you're saying and say almost they're harsher toward the church than they 100%. Are to. I feel like my wife has said sometimes, like, she's like, I feel more welcome at my gym than at church sometimes. And I'm like, oh, and you expect more at your church because that is your family of faith.
Yeah, that's right. And I think people, because the church is what the church is, they expect more. And here's the thing. it should be the one place they do feel that. Like when you think about hospitality and you think about God was the first host. He hosted Adam and Eve. When you look at the Bible, hospitality is a meta narrative. It is all throughout the Bible that there is this aspect that God and then Jesus when he comes to earth and it is constantly hosting us and being hospitable towards us. And of all places, the church should be. Unfortunately, the church is also filled with humans. And humans can mess it up. Speaking of that, I want to ask you a question.
Self-conscious humans, I would say, because I think about the person that you pass on your walk, and I don't think they don't want you to greet them.
Fair.
I think they're so in their head, or they're so not used to talking to their neighbors that you caught them off guard and they didn't know how to respond. So when you tell them hi again, I think then they're kind of their response. My guess is you probably get more of a response from them the second time, right?
Yeah.
Because they've like, okay, this person has given me permission to now greet them, or maybe they feel even more self-conscious because they didn't greet you in the first time. But I think that's so much of what helps us break down some of the like rejecting just okay is we need to stop assuming that people don't want to talk to us or that people don't want our welcome or that people don't want. They're just in their own space. They're feeling insecure, and what I love about you is you have the confidence to say, like, I don't care how insecure you are. I'm still going to host you and be present in that moment with you, which I think is one of the ways that we do reject it. Just okay. We say, like, it doesn't matter the response from someone else to a degree, right? Like we need some emotional intelligence, right? But it doesn't matter someone else's response. I am going to be a welcoming presence.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Jonathan. So check this out. Yeah. Great tee up. Thank you. A lot of times we think of welcome or hospitality in terms of like places. Our church, I'm a greeter, I'm a small group leader, I'm an usher, whatever it could be, right? All of us in the church, no matter your volunteer role or staff role. What's interesting about what you just said is Laura Murray wrote a book about being a person of welcome. We ought to talk about spaces of welcome. But really what we believe in this book is that you and Laura did a remarkable job writing about, we're really talking about you're a person of welcome. So you, the volunteer, you, the staffer, no matter your role, no matter, if that person's come the first time or 100th time, right? So if we go into the practical world, we're not advocating for massive changes. We think like small upgrades can really create significant impact, right? So could we talk about like what are some examples that people could consider when it comes to just okay, or maybe they should look at that and tweak it a little bit. So instead of like massive overhauls, like what are some possible small upgrades people could make, church staffers, guiding their volunteers, in order to reject just okay and be excellent?
Yeah, I think of the one of the more common ones I've seen is the idea that like first service is practice, and you'll have that with volunteers as well, where we have maybe not finished setting up the kids check-in center by 10 minutes before, but like first service is practice, because the most people come to the second or third service, we can kind of slide into our role of serving a little bit more. And that's one of those, like, it needs to be kind of a game time, no matter what. We have guests on the property right now, whether it's 1 or 100. And I mean, I think about that. Like I was hosting a workshop yesterday and I went home to my wife and I was like, oh, it's kind of a bummer. There was only like 10 people there. And I'm like, and she's like, why does that matter? I'm like, well, because I'm used to 100 people at a workshop, right? Like, and the reality is I hopefully gave just as much for those 4 people or 10 people or however many were there as I did for 100 people. But the temptation is, oh, I don't even want to do this. I don't even want to I don't even want to put the effort in. I'm just going to I'll just kind of check out, go through the motions 15 minutes later and be done. Right. Like, and I think that's the reality of first service or Sunday night or Wednesday night. What would you say? What are some examples you've seen?
I mean, confession, I don't really have anything revolutionary. I think it's really the basic things done well consistently, like clear signage,
Yeah.
eye contact that doesn't just glance at someone, but kind of gaze, not like staring a hole through them, but it communicates warmth. I see you.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, we have a faster recovery time. I think
Phones.
about, huh?
Phones for eye contact. If we're talking eye contact,
Yeah,
phones is a big deal. Yeah.
huge. And
Phones
you
away.
talked about assumptions earlier. Well, that person doesn't, they're quiet or their head is looking down. They probably don't want to speak to me, so I won't say hello to them.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm a volunteer where I attend church. I lead our ushers, and sometimes I even feel this way when people are leaving. And this would be another small little example: is we're better at saying hello than we are at saying thank you for coming or goodbye, right? And so on the backside, as people are leaving, I sometimes will notice, oh, that guy or that gal's head is down. They probably don't want to talk, so I'm just not going to do it. And honestly, I've done that before, and I'm like, oh, I fell into the trap. And so
Yeah.
it's acknowledging people inbound and outbound. It's not contingent on their response. I'm trying to create a moment that is memorable, that is meaningful for them, because what people are going to do with experiences is they're going to attach meaning to them, right?
Yeah.
So, that's why these tiny moments are super important. Our emotional presence is really important. There was an interesting study done that if you put three people together for in silence, within 2 minutes, one person can influence the emotions of the other two. No words spoken, simply by presence. And it's interesting that when you
Meaning
think
like
about,
joyful presence or negative presence, or
yeah,
so if I'm
yeah,
like like frustrated, that immediately changes the other two people. They can just sense it.
yeah, because there's this thing like emotional contagion, and we could unpack it more, and you could use words and all that. But what's interesting is this study did no words, three people within 2 minutes. One person can influence how other two people feel simply by that one person's presence. And so it's a reminder that when I think about our volunteers and our church staff, leaders, like we influence people with our words, which we obviously pay attention to, but we influence people simply by our presence. And I think that could be one of those upgrades. So warmer eye contact, clear signage, recovery, a faster recovery if things go wrong, thanking people for being there, good to see you next week, things of that nature. And remembering how powerful our presence can be and how impactful it can be on someone's, meaning of their experience, or when they have to decide, should I go back there or should I not? Man, I'm glad I was there today. That kind of stuff. So those are, again, not revolutionary, but I think when we do the small things really well all the time, that's what creates not a bare minimum, but it becomes meaningful and memorable, and not just okay, not just fine, but something people want to come back to and experience again.
I have something I would like to say, but first we do need to thank our sponsor. Church first impressions matter, maybe now more than ever. When someone visits your church for the first time, that moment shapes how they feel, whether they return, and how connected they become. At First Impressions, they exist to help you make those moments count. From First Impressions Conference, where leaders gather to learn practical, proven strategies, to First Impressions Academy, which is a step-by-step training hub for your entire team, they provide tools that make welcoming guests simple and effective. And if you're ready for deeper support, their Academy plus cohorts or executive coaching groups guide you in building systems that are personal, repeatable, and sustainable. Whether you're improving your follow-up, strengthening volunteer teams, or redesigning your guest experience, they walk with you so you never have to guess what to do next. Because when you make a guest feel known, noticed, and loved, we open the door to discipleship. That's the power of great first impressions. So check out firstimpressions.church. But back to our conversation, I think one of the things that I've noticed so much personally, and maybe this is not everyone, is when I start feeling dumb or when I start feeling insecure, that's when I accept just okay. So I think about, I was involved at a church where the welcoming culture was you high five people. That was what the welcome team did. I loved that because I hate shaking hands. I have kind of sweaty palms and I'm like, I don't want to like high five, quick slap. It's good, right? But But as I was welcoming people, I would see someone walking toward me and I would have my hand up, and I had to be willing to look a little bit foolish to be like, "Hey, how's it going?" Because they think I'm waving for the first, half a second to a second. And then
Yeah.
about 2 or 3 seconds, they start registering, oh, this person's trying to give me a high five. So I
Yeah.
have to be willing to look dumb for 3 seconds, 5 seconds, so that they get the cue of this person's trying to high five me. And I had to get over that insecurity of like, I feel so dumb with my hand up right now. Like, what am I doing? Realizing that it took them a while to catch up. And
Yeah.
I think that is so much of what happens when we just accept okay is other people haven't caught up yet to where we are. And we have to be willing to slow down our pace to realize, they're getting to the atmosphere that we're setting here. Otherwise, we tend to, be what the common thing, right? Is you're either a thermostat or a thermometer. The
Yeah.
thermometer checks the temperature of the room and settles at it and shows what it is, or the thermostat sets the temperature of the room. And that's what we're
Yeah.
trying to do. We're trying to create excellence to set the temperature at a certain level, and we need to give people a chance to get there. I don't
Yeah.
know, do you have
Love
anything
that.
final to add? We're about to end this episode.
Yeah, I love when you said excellence there at the end. I mean, excellence is empathy in action, right? And remember this, as you're crafting these experiences, the experiences and the spaces and places super important. But what Jonathan said at the beginning is more important, the people. And remember, their decision to return is built on trust, not polish. And if it's memorable when they're there, it is rarely accidental. It's been because you chose to be intentional about creating that moment just for them.
Love that. Hey, so that was our episode. We have chapter 9 and then chapter 10 the week after, and then we're done with this book. We'll be moving on to another. If you have a book recommendation for us that you'd like us to cover, find us on social media, message us. If you had some questions about this episode, feel free to leave a comment or again, find us on social media. But we hope this was helpful for you, whether you're going through it as a team or individually. We just want to be able to learn together. So we'll see you next week.